Hello. Hi everyone. Hi. Sorry I didn't come around and say hi to people before, but hopefully I can chat to you at the end. So I'm Becky Thorne. Thank you so much for coming and not ending up, maybe lying on the beach or whatever nice cool thing you could have done. Obviously some people are, that's why we haven't got all 90 people here. So who am I? A little bit about me. So I've been a business analyst for a while, worked in lots of different sectors, government, finance, retail, humanitarian relief. I love devs so much though. I married one over there. Okay. And as you can see, I'm pregnant. With a dev, who knows? I think with a BA and a dev in the house, we probably need a QA next, I think, probably, or a PM or something to get us organised. But yes. No PMs. Ooh. And yeah, my final fact about me is that but I don't normally admit this to everyone, but I did do a PhD in number theory, so I kind of come from a geek background originally, although I've gone into the world of people, or whatever it is. Okay, numbers, yes. So yeah, Matthew mentioned that I'm here because of sending out this tweet. So I got very excited one day about business architecture because I've been getting into it at work, and I was like, yes, business architecture, because tech architecture, we can't create tech arc without biz arc. Tech for business, not tech for the sake of tech. And that ensued then a great bit of banter between me and the lovely Nick back there about business architecture and what it is. And he said, oh, this is so fun, you should do a talk on it. And there's some text about doing a talk on it, copied in a bunch of people, including Matthew. And then Matthew was like, yes, come and do a talk to DevOps people and maybe do a bit of a how-to. So I was like, that's an interesting angle. And the same day, I had also been to a talk about giving talks and how you should just say yes. So I just went, yes, because I've just been programmed to say yes. So this is one of the first talks I've done for a long time, and the first talk I've ever done about business architecture. So let's see how it goes. So, but thank you very much for having me here, and hopefully this won't be too long. I think about 20 minutes or so on my bit. So I'm going to be talking very briefly about what it is, what business architecture is, and then go more into like the how-to, some based on a couple of real examples, but names have been changed to protect the innocent, kind of thing. And I will refer to continuous delivery, DevOps, that kind of thing where I can, but I'm not going to draw any grand conclusions about the awesome relationship between the two. I will leave that to you to sort of come up with your own conclusions of how this might be relevant to what you do. So, without further ado, business architecture this is very much my own definition, that business architecture is revealing the structures of the organisation beyond the org chart. So, things like the capabilities of the organisation, what's that? I will explain it later. The goals, the strategies, the vision, these sort of grand things that get talked about, but might not end up being very visible when you're actually doing your work day to day. But they should be. That's my opinion. They should be right up there above your Kanban wall or whatever you have, so that you know why you're doing what you're doing. And if anyone doesn't think that you should be working towards that goal, then they should be able to come in and go, no, that isn't what we're doing anymore. Yeah. So just a kind of a caveat related to that is that I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of what business architecture is, what any of the roles are. I want to just give you a bit more of an introduction and give you a couple of techniques and kind of trying to relate it to something that you could do as a development team on the ground. So it's very much sort of focused from a development team's point of view. And I'm a consultant, so I work for ThoughtWorks. I didn't mention that bit yet. Should have done the plug, Yeah, we need people too. So I work at ThoughtWorks, and we're a consultancy. So we generally, we're going into the organisation, so it's not really our IT department. So that's why, in some ways, this is more important to us, but shouldn't really be. For any dev team, even within an organisation, if you don't feel you've got a good link or understanding of the business, then there's no reason why you can't kind of deploy some of these techniques yourself. First technique is goals. I'm going to talk about goals. We talk about goals because they bring clarity. So let's have a look at an example. So this was there's some headings from one of the walls, so some epics titles we had on one of the walls that we were working on for a client that is in the banking realm that offers loans. And these were some... Sorry, Wonga. No. Don't keep asking, don't keep suggesting things. If I have to come up with a name, I nearly put a name up here before. Let's call them Bank Me Baby, okay? Bank Me Baby asked us to come in and look at loans. And so this is a online loan product that they wanted us to build for them. And, and of course, they want us to do it agile and do all these things, but they're not really sure completely what we were doing. So these were the different kind of epics up there. People coming in, people from the business coming in, trying to understand what it is. So can you see any things on there that the business might think is business value, like has really definitely got business value in it? Auto decide on loan for customer, yes. That's really obvious, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry? Is there another one? Someone wants to come in. Can someone let this lovely man in?
Yes, just push the button.
Oh, that one. Okay, cool. Okay, I don't know actually if he's lovely, but okay, great. Sorry, yes, so auto decide on loan for customer. That's a really obvious epic that's got a lot of value for the business. Anything else up there you think is going to have value?
Decision reports?
Daily decision reports, yep.
Dynamic FAQs.
Dynamic FAQs, yeah, maybe. Do you know what they are?
Well, I imagine that they're FAQs that people keep asking and bothering the business about.
Yeah.
They want to be bothered. So
okay. Yep.
Self-promote.
What about Meg? Isn't that really important?
Yeah.
Yep. And Bango, I thought lots of people would be saying APAS, right? Doesn't that resonate here? Platform as a service, that's got business value, right? Well, let's see how we kind of unpick this. So, how do we find out what the business value is and what we're doing? Well, very simple. We've got to find out who or what is the business and what is value to them, basically. So let's see how that played out in this context. This is the business. This is the product owner. Just stop, he was saying, just stop all that APAS-y thingy stuff. He wasn't very happy. And just build the simple user journey, just the one that I wanted, that I told you about last week, but do it now. And if customers don't like it, I want to be able to change it, like really quickly, okay? So this poor guy, slightly, exaggerated, not a real photo of the real person. He was a bit upset, and he would be coming down. He's quite high up kind of person. Come along every 2 weeks back round to the dev team and be like, "What's going on? You're working so fast in the first 12 weeks, and now I can't see anything that's coming out." So he got very upset. So what do we do about the really nice man? So what the nice man really meant was that his MVP goals were these things. So we sat down and wrote down what his MVP goals were. And when he was saying that he wants a simple user journey, we say, okay, what do you mean? And basically wants to make sure that at least one person could complete a simple user journey 100% online. He started saying he wanted it to be 100% digital, but what he really meant was 100% online. So that meant that we could get around a few things that weren't digital, like we didn't have to do a digital signature, things like that were going to cause extra time. So we persuaded him to tweak his words. Now, in the reality, he had been saying words that were more like this, but we had heard it more in the earlier version. But what had happened was that no one had actually written it down. So I started to write it down, what he was saying. And when he was saying, I really want to learn about what customers think, so he wants to be ready to learn, like from the get-go. And then when he wants to change it really quickly, he wants to be ready to adapt. Okay, so we've got these 3 goals, and that's the MVP. So then how do we use that to try and work out whether we're working on the right stuff? So we can put it next to our big epics like this, and then do a bit of a mapping exercise. So it turns out that Meg was this really important thing to verify a customer and to see if they were actually had a good credit rating or something. But I don't know, seemed very important to those people from the regulations department, so we had to keep that bit in. And yes, obviously capture financial details and auto decide on loan were all very important for that basic simple journey that was going to get sort of 50% of the customers, you know, the first lot. Dynamic FAQs, unfortunately, they realised that, and thankfully, because it was a lot of work and it was another procurement and blah blah, it wasn't that important because for the MVP to learn something from it, so we could ditch that and hopefully hope that they'll forget about it by the time we get round. Yeah, sorry about that. And then yes, so the APAS is the ready to adapt bit. So this was really key. So when he understood that this big old thing over here that we were calling the CD pipeline was actually what was actually going to enable him to be ready to adapt on day one, because you know it was a big brand, Bank Me Baby. You know, if something goes wrong, then it will be everywhere, and they don't want their product to look bad. They don't want like thousands and thousands of people suddenly coming on and getting loans, or no one getting loans, and it all just kind of looking awful. So he wanted to be able to change interest rates and do whatever he wanted to do. So he started to get it that this thing that was going to cost us like half of this next 12 weeks to build was actually kind of quite critically business important. So he started to get on board with that. We were able to have a bit of discussion with the DevOps and the devs guys who were building it, and start to say, well, but bear in mind we have only got like 8 weeks left of this time, you know, do we have to build all of the pipeline? Is it all important? They're like, oh, well, this was our gold-plated version. Well, yeah, so if we have to do this, we could cut out some bits. So it kind of led to a good bit of a conversation. And then the ready-to-learn bit was all the, turns out this Bango thing is some kind of web analytics, and the daily decision report could probably also help with that. It's just letting some more people in. Okay, welcome. Okay, right, so sort of how could anyone do this? I think the trick is really write down what the nice man says, you know, make sure you've got it in writing, because also it stops then the nice man from coming along 2 weeks later and saying something else. And he might mean the same thing, but he might just say it in a different way, but it stops you then having to kind of completely rearrange all your backlog and stop people working on that important thing. But, you know, as someone who writes down things, you can have a go at trying to craft it, make it logical, play it back to the nice man, adapt the words if the nice man doesn't like it, but do also feel free if you have to kind of ignore or lose the post-it note that it was written on, to make it nice and pretty and logical again at the end. But obviously that... I'm not, oh shit, all right, okay. Okay, yes, yeah, revealed. Don't, yeah, don't video that bit. Yeah. Yes, redacted, okay. All right, so technique number 2, capabilities. Don't know if you've heard about these things before. Yes, so I will explain. And why I think I'm going to describe why capability is important. In this case I'm going to talk about now is where it really helped to bring stakeholders together. And I think that's the real essence of what business architecture or business analysis or anything like that can do, is really to join up the stakeholders and importantly join them up with IT. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, so instead of the men here, man in the last one, I want to try and find some stock photo images of women, but there weren't enough that were being as sort of demanding as that guy, so they all look very much like the woman on the right over here. But fortunately, she does kind of sum up the contact centre mood anyway, so that's okay. But I found these other two kind of like badass women over here, so hopefully they will do. So this scene is kind of set in a let's say a public sector organisation where they do a lot of different kind of things. So one of the areas that they do is buildings and maintenance. They do health, and then they've got the contact centre as well. And there's lots of other kind of departments in this very large organisation. Okay. And so then they come along to IT and they say, yeah, we want a CRM, please. We want a case management system / sort of CRM thingy type thing, one of those. And they want to see, contact center want a CRM, but definitely integrated with Twitter, telephony and all those other things. No problems, right? Okay. So what do IT think about that? So head of IT, he's so like, oh, you only want the CRM because a man in a suit came and said CRM. Bloody consultants. Yes. So upset. Although fortunately they have this very cool tech architect who knows, she just knows that all they need is just some APIs just to make their current systems all talk to each other. They don't really need a big CRM. Problem is she's going to have to turn APIs into something like microservices, because that's what she really wanted to do. But damn it, all they need is just some basic tech architecture. It's so annoying to bring them up into the 21st century. Anyway, so what do we do next? So they say, okay, let's try and work this out. The IT guys are saying, right, can we just get you all in a room and let's talk about this thing, this CRM. And no, they're very busy. We're very different to them, but the contact centre, they'd quite like to talk to the others, but they know that no one wants to talk to them, and they know that they wouldn't get it because actually contact centre do all the work for everyone anyway, clean up all the mess. So this is the problem, is basically trying to bridge the gap between the business and IT. But in some circumstances, particularly in this circumstance, and I'm sure many others, it's not just the business and IT, it's the business and the business and the business and the business and IT. So it can be quite complicated. And you can see that there's sort of a lot of different language that people are using. People might be also picking up language that they've heard, like CRM or things like that. They're going, oh yes, that's a good word. That sounds like the thing that we need. So we better talk about it if we want to get in, if we want to get that money and get that thing. And they all have a different way of kind of making requests, and maybe something's kind of fallen by the wayside, or something has really deteriorated as well in this relationship between the business and IT. So you could see that sometimes they're treating IT as a vendor. And why is that? It might be because IT just hasn't been providing. They've always been saying to the departments, well, we don't really, sorry, we can't really do your thing. We've got this other very important new thing that's going on over here. We can't do the keep the lights on stuff for you guys, even though maybe what you're doing is really important. But and maybe then they go off and they procure their own stuff. So you have all these pockets of IT in different like business areas that then people say IT come along and want it all to be that they come along to IT and say, can't you just make all these things all talk to each other? Oh right. Yes, a few recognisable smiles there. So one method of sort of being able to do this that I've used earlier this year is capabilities. But as I said before, it's very much that's just the tool, and the real effort is trying to get people to talk to each other. So how might that work in this situation? So capabilities are really just trying to ask people, what do you actually do? So what's your actual thing that you do as a department? So it turns out building maintenance, they handle requests for building maintenance. The health people get referrals in for drug addiction. Not as kind of as smooth looking as she was after all. So it might explain the smile. But yeah, so, and they, sorry, that's probably bad. I think so. So get referrals in for drug addiction and assess them on the phone. And then if it's something they're going to take on as a case, then they might create a case. Okay, so that's a little bit better language. We can start to get around that. We can see what's going on there. And contact center over there, they handle calls on everything. So they're handling calls on the maintenance stuff, on the drug addiction, on lost dogs, on paper clips, on everything. So they're all over it. Okay. So what we do in this case is bring calm with capabilities. So this is an example of what those capabilities might look like. This isn't a standard way of necessarily doing capabilities, but it kind of chimes in a bit with the way that they're doing them at GDS as well. So government side, hopefully that means something to you. So receive service requests. So that sounds a bit like what they were saying in building maintenance. So they get in service requests and they've got to kind of handle those. Maybe there's some of those coming in on contact center as well. But contact center are certainly viewing all the service requests and they're viewing potentially cases as well. But we might need to dig a bit further in to see if they do get down to that level. So the health people were getting in calls. Maybe we could try and persuade them that those requests that are coming in are service requests because they're a service as well as the buildings maintenance being a service. So can we all kind of agree a definition of what a service request is together and see if it kind of makes sense? And then if the service request turns into a case that you want that's a bit more than just a transaction, more than a phone call, then you might want to follow that through. So yeah, let's still call that a case because that sort of seems to resonate. And then obviously if you create a case, you might want to view cases. And what no one talked about, but did come out as we go along, is that everyone's got to identify a customer at some point as well. So for sort of simplicity's sake, we're going to take these 5 capabilities that we're going to map out from having done some of these more in-depth conversations with them. Maybe we've mapped out their user journey, something like that. And then we're going to kind of map them back to them. So I don't know if these colours really work out properly, but so we had before like buildings and maintenance blue, health is pink, and contact centre. And when we take them back to them, we're basically trying to say is that, so buildings and maintenance, your sort of capabilities of what you do as a, what your people are capable of, what your processes do, what your systems do, is you receive service requests, you view service requests, and you identify customers, basically. And they're like, okay. And they're like, what are the other coloured dots? And they say, well, you've kind of got that in common with the contact centre and with the health team as well. They actually do all these things. And we're like, do they? And they're also sort of thinking about all these things in the same kind of way as you are at the moment. They're actually rethinking how they're going to work with their customers and then identify them and process them. It's all kind of, should be maybe some conversation we should be having together maybe. And then, and then the health guys, you've also obviously got that case stuff going on, which is a bit more specific to you guys. Not everyone does that. You are maybe your unique sort of snowflake that you think you are in that area. But maybe this is a way to get a dialogue. So what could that lead to then? So the tech arc. So this can lead to a really good conversation then with the technical architect discussing what we're going to do. So as you saw earlier, she had that idea that there's some of this stuff we should create maybe APIs for, maybe create little services for, yes, microservices. But maybe, the really unique stuff like the create case, we could leave that alone, and they've already got that big old service. We don't really want to get our hands messy in that system there. But we could do some work on these capabilities. We're not saying we're going to completely rebuild a system for each of these things. We're just sort of saying that we want to do something related to it. It's just a random man walking by. Come on in.
He's our co-founder.
Okay. All right.
Definitely
Okay. Okay, so then let's bring it all together. So now we can get the tech architect, and finally all these lovely women want to get together, and she's got a way now, this tech architect, of being able to explain it all. So she's going to build a way to send service requests direct from our website, okay, to the current case system, and that's going to be called an API. And so she can maybe even throw in some technical language here, dazzle them. And they're like, maybe she knows her stuff. Maybe I won't go to that procurement place over there. Maybe that man in the suit didn't really know what he was talking about. And she's also saying we could build a way to view all the service requests and the cases for all the customers using more APIs in a view or something like that. And suddenly, like, she's talking the language that they get, so they're like, oh, cool, okay. And obviously, contact center, like, whatevs, you know, just get on with it, you know. So, yeah, you know, contact center. So it's a useful tool. And how does IT man feel about this? So have they started talking about our CRMs? Yes, I've sorted that out. But I just now need the folks for developers, right? Oh, thank fuck for that, he says. I can now tell that man in the suit to bugger off. But she's not sure she's actually going to get those 4 developers, you know. So she might be calling up that man in the suit herself. Okay, so that was a bit of fun, but it relates to a real case, and this is one I can talk about the name of. So Stockport Council up near good old Manchester, and we've been doing this sort of capability mapping work early in the year with some very sort of important areas like public health, who do deal with drug addiction, social care, both children's and so on, but also things like public spaces, dog bins and things like that. And they were all in this kind of like, we're all snowflakes kind of thing. And I've gone through a lot of this kind of stuff. So they obviously weren't as bad as the caricatures. I just need to caveat that and say. But yeah, so this really helped to actually get them all then willing to come into a room and come to what we call inceptions. So there are kind of big workshops that then kick off the delivery phase, and they were like, yes, we want to go in and we want to talk about case management and we want to talk about service requests and citizens, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So it did work, and it also helped feed into the architecture. So as the business architect developing the capabilities, I was developing them very much with the technical architect, and we were creating the technical architecture on the back of it. And we're trying to do it iteratively, so starting like within the first couple of weeks and then developing it over the next couple of weeks. And that then was feeding into the program plan, where we were going, right, okay, well then if we're trying to do this bit and that bit and that bit, that kind of divides into kind of 3 work streams and so on. And we did it with them with playbacks and so on. So this was part of a discovery phase before delivery. So yeah, it was very much about having conversations between the, you know, this was just the setup that we had. It could be conversations, you know, that you can have with any kind of group of people who are trying to work on what you're working on. And I mustn't forget UX and user research, because there was quite an element of that coming in as well, which was helping to define what was working and what wasn't working and what users really wanted. So for anyone who's got a UX hat in the in the room, I do apologise that I haven't really touched on that. And there is obviously quite a lot of business value and so on that you can really link to the user side and make, as you know, I'm sure you've read about like lean and all that kind of stuff. So this isn't kind of going into that side. We're trying to focus more on like the more internal business end, which should be linked to what the users think, and it should all like nicely dovetail. But sometimes there's these sort of bigger business drivers, like trying to save money or change departments or anything like that, that are going on as well. So okay, so just to summarize, we cover goals to bring clarity. So something to take away, are your goals, are they clear? Could you even have them on a wall somewhere near where you're working? Capabilities to join stakeholders. So Do you have visible, unifying language? I think that's what it's really about, whether you call it capabilities or whatever you call it. It's just about trying to create a unifying language and one that can be visible. So those capabilities are now on the wall in Stockport Council. You can go and talk to them and point at them. And we very much, we didn't just have them on the wall, we went round and kind of showed them to people and put them on tables in front of them and got people to point at them and hold them up and talk about them. So it was like, became quite a physical thing. And finally, so that was just 2 kind of techniques. There's lots of others, but I hope that you've had a little picture, the business architecture. It could be your kind of lurking beast, but I hope you could see it could also be your ally too. And that's it. That's me. Thank you very much. Thank you.